On this anniversary of the 24th anniversary of September 11th, we've reserved this hour to talk about it. But yesterday, an event took place, unfortunately, that demands that we spend a little time talking about that. And that's the assassination of conservative spokesperson Charlie Kirk. Happened in Utah yesterday. With me in studio is Jonathan Dent, who has some thoughts about it. But I will start out by saying this one thing up front. I don't care what your political bent is. I don't care what you believe or who you believe. I don't care what you read or where you read it. But whatever it is, it does not give you or anyone else the right to violence simply because you disagree. It is beneath our country, yet it happens time and time again. And it is a black eye for the nation. Enough said. Jonathan?
Thank you for calling it an assassination. Because that's what it
was.
That's what it was, and it's not something that a lot of people are calling it. Because I think it gives it too high of a profile. I don't know.
Well, he was a high-profile person.
Was. Absolutely. This is someone that was heavily, not heavily, but influential, certainly, within
his sphere of influence.
Donald Trump's circles and all of that.
Absolutely.
The thing that, I'm angry about it. I was a fan of his. I liked a lot of what he stood for. I didn't agree with everything that he had to say specifically.
I don't know anybody I agree with everything.
And if you do agree with everybody on something, you'd better be married to them, is my opinion.
That's a great line.
But, no, this is the thing that gets me, that I keep coming back to, is Charlie Kirk was the most reasonable voice speaking to young conservatives.
Bingo. I was going to bring that up because his audience was different.
Yep.
Than most, because he did attract the younger folks.
Everybody else that young conservatives have to look up for is, I won't say an extreme view, but they are more of an outrage and trying to get clicks and views by making you angry type of thing. The thing that Charlie Kirk stood for was sitting down and genuinely listening to the other side. Now, he wasn't necessarily listening so that he could change his mind. He was listening so that he could hear your arguments and learn how to deconstruct them, and he always attacked the argument first.
And you mentioned sitting down because that was his style, which is exactly what he was doing yesterday. First question came, and he answered it while he was sitting at the table. And then the second question led to the shooting.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame. First of all, there'll be people who say, oh, that party did it, blame the Democrats, blame this. Or the other way around, if it's a Republican shooting at somebody, blame the Republicans. No, blame the shooter.
Yes.
Blame the individual who's sick enough to think that they can take a gun, take somebody's life, and somehow they improve the world.
I agree with that to an extent, Art. I don't blame a party. I don't blame a particular group of people. And this happens both ways, for sure. But there's always calls for, let's turn down the temperature here. Let's have a more reasonable conversation. And that is something that Charlie Kirk was probably one of the best people at doing that.
Yep.
But when you call someone who is working to lower the political temperature a Nazi, when you call them a threat to democracy, when you vilify them to that degree, can you really be surprised when a sick person takes it upon themselves to rid the world of a Nazi and a threat to democracy?
Well, I can. But, I understand what you're saying. Words have consequence.
I'll defend people's rights to say those things 100%. But you need to understand the effect of saying those things.
Well, I point this out when I speak to groups about the First Amendment and free speech. If you read the First Amendment and what it allows you, it says government won't interfere with your ability to speak.
Yep.
Doesn't guarantee you an audience.
Nope.
Nor does it guarantee you there won't be consequence. And I point that out to people, and they go, oh, yeah, Well, what do you mean by that consequence? I say, well, the example I give, let's say you don't like your boss. You think he is or she's a piece of you-know-what. And you badmouth them one night, and you're in some public place, and people hear you, and you're mouthing off about how your boss is this and your boss is that. Well, you exercised your free speech. Next day you go to work, find out you don't have a job. Well, too bad. Nobody took away your ability to say it, but you said it, and now you're going to pay the price.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of free speech, and there are consequences. I go back to what I said in the beginning, though. It still takes a mentally deranged person to do this. Whether they've been motivated by hate speech or not, we still are dealing with an individual who doesn't understand right from wrong.
Or has a misunderstanding of it. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You don't understand it if you have a misunderstanding.
In all of the aftermath of this, I saw a very interesting Charlie Kirk clip where he was talking about right and wrong, where he was talking with somebody who was arguing that morality is subjective. And Charlie Kirk said, okay, was Hitler an evil person? And the guy said, not necessarily. And it was like, so yeah, no, there are people out there that have that misunderstanding. I think something that, that's something that makes Charlie Kirk of all people stand out also is he wasn't only political. It wasn't only about the politics.
No. The few things I've heard, and I didn't know a lot about him, but the few things that I had heard, the words that I would have attached to him are reasonable, responsible, and someone who tried to tone down the rhetoric rather than accelerate the rhetoric. Unfortunately today, and I've said this many times, for me, all the noise is made on the far left and the far right. The ultra-progressives on the left and the ultra-conservatives on the right make all the noise, and most people don't live there. Most people live in the middle. They have a mix of tendencies, social and conservative, liberal, and, whatever.
And whenever somebody in the middle speaks up about anything, they get pushed into one camp or the other.
Well, you never hear them.
Yeah, well,
either you don't hear them or they get cubbyholed into one or the other. And it's unfortunate today, but this was a very unfortunate action that will have lasting effects. But the thing that worries me about it is, will it have lasting effects? Because we tend to forget. We make a big deal out of it now, and should be. And it'll be in the news for a while till they capture the shooter and Charlie's laid to rest and all of that. 3 months from now, nobody will be talking about it. And do we forget? I mean, we're going to talk about 9/11 here next. 9/11 brought this country together like it never was. It lasted 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have short memories.
Well, this isn't bringing anybody together. You look at the response on both sides, and there's people dancing on his grave, basically. It's awful.
There was some comments made. Whoever made them should be fired.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't dance on the body of a dead man. That's ridiculous. Stupid.
Yep.
So, anyway, all right, we're going to take a break. Come back, we're going to talk a little bit about 9/11. You want to hang around?
Sure.
We're going to chat a little bit about 9/11 and play some audio from that day that I did with Cameron Knowles in the afternoon. But before we do that, let me talk about Krizak's House Family Restaurant. Best place to go for your authentic home-cooked foods with a European flair at reasonable prices. Now's the time to think about getting together with friends and family for lunch or dinner as well as events coming up soon. Graduations, confirmations, wedding showers, anniversaries. It's all there. Krizak's has an economical way for you to supply the food. You can order what you want in Polish and American foods, then just pick it up at the restaurant, ready to go, or have your celebration right there at the restaurant. Don't forget, at a moment's notice, Krizak's can help. Call them at 989-894-5531. Krizak's House Family Restaurant, corner of Cass and Michigan, on Bay City's south side. And we will be back right after these notes.
Did you hear? The best The attack today happened in Manhattan, although because of the two buildings that were struck, it could be seen probably all up and down the eastern seaboard.
Well, it's an interesting observation you make, because what happened decades ago when the World Trade Center was constructed was that it literally became the new image of New York City. For years and years and years, if you asked anyone, what does New York look like, they tell you the Empire State Building, and basically Midtown Manhattan. And nobody thought much of Lower Manhattan in terms of its visual appeal, but it had it. But when you came into the harbor, for example, if you came in on ship or you flew over Manhattan, you saw the Empire State Building. That all changed when the World Trade Center was built, and it became the visual landmark of New York. I was there 3 weeks ago, walking around the World Trade Center, by the way. You know, as I sit here and think of it today, a couple of things come to mind. One of obviously the souls that were lost that will be counted in the future, and their families, and the mass of humanity that pours into that building. It houses, on a normal day, 50,000 people. The two towers. They were estimating in the upper floors where the planes struck probably were 10,000 in each tower, and 5,000 visitors. And on one of the towers is the sky deck, where thousands go up to see the city as you can see from no other place. Also, that you don't hear too much about, but I heard in one of the newscasts, is the subterranean culture of the World Trade Center, which is the shops, the stores, the subways, the path tubes, which are interstate trains that run to New Jersey. All of these things kind of hub into the World Trade Center. So you have at its utmost a lucrative target for terrorism, and it's been tried before, obviously. Something happens, though, to this nation when this happens. We will pull together like no other act can make us pull together. You can hear it in the response of the Democrats and the Republicans and others. You will see this nation come to grips with the tragedy. You will see New Yorkers pull together for New Yorkers. And stop me when you need to take the break because I can't see the clock.
Mm-hmm.
You will see particularly New Yorkers bond like they never bond before. For example, you haven't heard of street looting. You haven't heard of things happening in the cities. They're all going to take care of their own.
One of the things that struck me about this, 2 points. One, and I was listening to your show this morning when word of this broke, was, and some newscaster mentioned it, this isn't original, but this is Pearl Harbor visited upon us. This is an attack of the magnitude of Pearl Harbor, a surprise attack on American soil.
I actually think it's a greater magnitude than Pearl Harbor, and let me put that, first of all, I do not want to diminish
Not at all.
the attack on Pearl Harbor. It was the most tragic event in our history until today.
But we're grasping for analogies to this.
Well, my analogy is that I'm not sure there is one, and the reason I say this is far worse than Pearl Harbor, first of all, I believe, and I'm certainly not in a position to count, I believe the death toll will be significantly higher than Pearl Harbor. Secondly, Pearl Harbor was a military target.
Mm-hmm.
This was not.
Right.
This was a sheer act of terrorism.
That's a significant difference. Art Lewis is with me, Cameron Knowles, a special edition of the program this afternoon. We will be joining CBS News for an update at 3:20 and welcoming your phone calls at 752-6111, 695-WSGW. Today's unprecedented terrorism attacks, you're hearing a little different tone here on WSGW. A listener called in earlier with a personal perspective who said, if you have an American flag, today might not be a bad day to fly it.
That's a very good notion.
It's 3:20 on WSGW.
CBS News Update. I'm Tom Foti.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended.
Echoes of 1941 in the nation's largest city and its capital. Perhaps a second day that will live in infamy as near simultaneous attacks destroy the 110-story World Trade Center towers in New York and a large section of the Pentagon. It started in New York.
I saw a huge explosion. I saw people falling out of windows, and I couldn't tell whether they were jumping or they were just falling. It looked like were pieces of metal, and then I put my binoculars on and I saw it was actual people.
falling out of the Trade Center towers, which collapsed not long thereafter. Mayor Rudolph Giuliani.
The city of New York and the United States of America is much stronger than any group of barbaric terrorists, that our democracy, that our rule of law, that our strength and our willingness to defend ourselves will ultimately prevail.
Just minutes after the double catastrophe in New York, more of the same at the Defense Department.
What seems to have happened is that we had an aircraft intentionally fly into the Pentagon.
Admiral Craig Quigley.
There were intense fires following the aircraft's impact into the building,
which is still burning.
In some parts of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, Palestinians took to the streets to celebrate the attacks. But the Palestinian Authority has condemned the attacks and quickly dispersed the celebrants.
At a protective stop at a Louisiana military base, President Bush.
We have been in touch with the leaders of Congress and with world leaders to assure them that we will do whatever is necessary to protect America.
All markets are closed. Again, casualties uncounted and likely to be uncounted for days, but many of them the president promising a response. CBS News Update, I'm Tom Foti.
Let's join JoJo Shuddy McGregor again from AAA of Michigan, WSGW News, keeping you up to date on activities and responses in this area, and of course with the major population center in the Metro Detroit area, and that's where JoJo broadcasts from. We'll get an update from her now.
The checks in with all of the state troopers along I-75, US 27, and in the thumb. Not surprising, traffic light to medium. No reported accidents right now along I-75. No reported types along US 27. But once again, just light to medium traffic.
Jojo, let me ask this. Are the bridges flowing fairly normally now?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Here's the latest word from some staffer at the Blue Water Bridge. Very bad conditions there. Very, very, very heavy. Normally we've got some heavy traffic as we get into the 4 to 6 o'clock commute hour between Metro Detroit and Windsor, and also between Port Huron and Sarnia at the Blue Water Bridge, and of course the Ambassador Bridge in the Metro Detroit area and Windsor area as well. Backed up at least an hour to an hour and a half in each direction at the Blue Water Bridge.
Wow.
The situation extremely heavy also at the tunnel. Of course, I told you in the earlier report that they just reopened the tunnel to traffic officially at around 3 o'clock. They were letting Canadians back into Canada at one point. But, of course, the situation is very intense for anyone trying to get back into the U.S. The security measures have been heightened, and the backups there have been just horrible, unbelievable. The other thing that I know you're probably wondering, I'm broadcasting from our world headquarters for AAA, and we're here in Dearborn, and of course very high Arab population here. And Mayor Guido was, I'm sure, on your airwaves as well, the mayor of Dearborn, going on saying keep cool and remain calm, and everything is under heightened security, but just denying any civil unrest in the streets, any looting or anything else that was erroneously being reported in the Dearborn or southeastern Michigan area. Nothing like that has happened, and also certainly asking for no unnecessary retaliation against anyone.
Well, this is one of the things that I think is so important in a situation like this, is speculation can run rampant, and even when a terrorist, whoever it is, domestic or foreign, is identified, that you do not identify an individual with an entire group of people. And practically an unprecedented statement out of the State Police Command Center this afternoon in the state of Michigan for people to basically take a deep breath and don't spread rumors. It's very important at this time to get accurate information out. Well, JoJo, we'll check in again at 5:30 if you can give us an update then, and we'll see how things are going in the Metro Detroit area and also with the bridges to Canada and Port Huron and Detroit, and traffic conditions, too. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. I'll see you then. Thanks.
So long, Jojo.
JoJo Shuddy McGregor from AAA of Michigan. We have word now from the Associated Press, quoting a White House spokesman, that President Bush will now return to the White House after a trip across the United States, keeping him on the move for safety's sake, one assumes. And again, President Bush is returning to the White House. We all but anticipate a statement by the president sometime this afternoon or evening. And the Bush administration has talked about a new direction, not necessarily a larger military, but a more specialized military. We live in a different world. We're not worried about going to war with Canada or Mexico or Russia, maybe China, we don't know. But we're going to war with people who are 35 or 40 people who have pagers and Palm Pilots, and they're emailing each other all over the world. And how do you conduct that kind of war? So not only, I think, do we have to have a response, but we have to craft a military that can fight this. Art?
I agree. And you're fighting an enemy who has a technological edge today that he didn't have before.
And that was discussion in the afternoon of 9/11. We'll be back, talk more with Jonathan Dent when we return.
Hi, I'm Jen.
And I'm Kevin.
We are back with you here on the Art Lewis Show, 24 years after 9/11. In studio with me, Jonathan Dent. You were pretty young.
Yep.
Back then. What do you remember, if anything?
Nothing. I know that I was at a babysitter's house and that my mom's a teacher. School obviously ended early, and she came and she picked me up. That's about, and I think she stayed there because the babysitter was a friend of hers and they watched the news, but I don't remember any of it.
Well, what you see right now, looking at me sitting here in front of this console, is exactly what you would have seen back then. We have television set out in the newsroom, and before I came in the studio, the first plane had hit. And my first reaction as a New Yorker was, well, some plane just flew into the building by accident or whatever.
Yep.
And then I came in here, and then I went back out for a couple of minutes, and the second plane hit and turned the world upside down. Knew right then and there that the broadcast day was put it away, forget it. And everything changed. Everything changed.
And it is everything.
It has changed everything in our lives in many ways.
I point to that. It's weird trying to convey to people who lived through it how much it has affected people my age and younger who came
didn't
after
live through it, but you have facing the consequences of it.
The consequences, and just it didn't just affect TSA. It didn't just affect air travel, but it has to do with privacy rules and just the way we think about the world. It's not the U.S. necessarily anymore. It is more globalized than that.
Well, it's interesting that a time of great unity in this nation, immediately following that is our time of great division.
Yeah.
And I never could figure it out. I do not understand the political psyche of this nation, how it's become so polarized, so separated after a time like 9/11 where everybody pulled together. It didn't matter your race, your religion, your nationality, your color. None of that mattered. We were all Americans and pulled together. 6 months later, it's like it never happened and got worse.
Yeah.
And it boggles my mind to think about it. And I just don't understand it today. And, sitting here, you and I both hear the political rhetoric every day. We have open lines from both sides, and I shake my head. I'm an old goat. I'm 82, a lot older than you are for sure. But I've watched over the decades the transition of this country to where it's at today. And a lot of it I trace back to social media. When the internet came along and then social media came along, and all of a sudden you could post anything you wanted and nobody had to know who you were. Say what you want. Stir people up any way you can. To me, it's just, I don't know. I just do not understand it. Maybe you in your youth, looking at it with maybe more open eyes than I am, have a different view.
I won't say it's better than before all of this came along, but it's certain.
Well, you wouldn't have a reference.
No. but I think it's not as bad as people think it is in a way.
Well, I'll agree to a point. The point is, we go about our lives every day.
Yeah.
Put on our pants the same way we always did. Women put on their dresses the same way they always did. You go to work, you get in your car, you go to the grocery store, you go to church, you do all those things. Life goes on. But the difference is we're hit over the head with negativity day in and day out.
Here's my question about the before times. It feels like, I'm holding up my phone. You can't see it because you're listening. Through this, I am connected to the world, whether I want to be or not. Every time I push the power button on this and turn it on and open it up and take a look.
He's talking about his cell phone, folks.
The world comes through it to me.
Yeah, literally. And you have to remember that this device, the cell phone, the smartphones today have more computing power in them than the computers that were used to land Neil Armstrong on the moon.
Yeah.
Think about that in this little tiny package.
My question is, that has shaped the thinking of people my age, that we just have access to all the information in the world. Was there anything like that before this technology, before all of this?
Well, no, we didn't have these things.
Well, but was there any...
Bag phones came along in the early 90s.
Was there any desire to be connected in that way?
You didn't think of it.
No.
You were connected because you had newspapers, radio, and television. And here's what I mean by that. The typical order of things. If something happened in the community, let's say at, 9 o'clock in the morning, radio was immediate. You heard about it right now. Skimpy details, but you heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then around noon, maybe you sat down and you turned on the noon news on television and you saw pictures of it. Or you waited till the evening and you saw the evening news and you saw pictures on it. And then after dinner, you sat down with the newspaper and you read all the details. That's the way you got your information. Aside from word of mouth, and people would call if they heard something, but nothing the way it was today.
And you could kind of trust that information.
Pretty much. Because, first of all, you have to remember the people providing that news, the Walter Cronkites of the world, were well respected. It was often said if he ran for president, he'd be a shoo-in. He never wanted it because his job, as he saw it, was to tell us what government was doing, not to be a part of it. And Huntley Brinkley, we had all of those folks back then. But you trusted them. And you trusted the newspaper because newspapers of the day, you might know what their bent was because of their banner. It might have been the so-and-so Republican or the so-and-so Democrat, or in neutral cases like here in town, we had the Saginaw News. But one way or another, you knew if you read the news, you were getting the news. If you wanted their opinion, you went to the editorial page.
Yeah.
Today, it's hard to separate the editorial from the journalistic. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and talk more. On this day, we remember 9/11 24 years ago.
Dow Credit Union is turning
only Jonathan Dent as we talk about 9/11. And, we also tend to forget it wasn't the first act of terrorism, first foreign act of terrorism on our soil, but not the first act of terrorism because the Oklahoma City bombing was domestic terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been other assassinations like Charlie Kirk, unfortunately, throughout our history. But they're isolated. It just seems that in this day and age, there's more and more of it. And some of it, you're absolutely right. The rhetoric drives it to some degree. Social media drives it.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't learned how to live with it.
No. And